Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to make a prop from an upcoming video game. An axe for the new Assassin's Creed Valhalla game. We haven't seen any gameplay footage yet, but I'm real happy with what I've seen in the cinematic trailer.
Odin is with us!
Using 4K wallpapers and frames from the trailer, I made a full-sized axe in Photoshop. I scaled the axe to fit a wooden dowel that I already had on hand. Now I can take all of my measurements directly from the drawing. So the main thing I want to do first is work on the axe head. What I've got are pieces left over from the kneeling pad. This is scrap from building the Gundam feet. There's plenty of it, so why not use this? Decided to make a wedge shape, so I'm going to need to glue those together, then cut them to fit, and then I'll take a bit of 6mm HD foam and lay that on either side of the axe head. I had cut the wedges on my bandsaw, and I cut off the textured sides, which is good to do for a better glue bond. Stack up all the wedges and sand down the sides until they're all the same. Even though I plan to cover these with more foam, you would still see the different sizes if I didn't do this. I traced 2 axe heads onto 6mm HD foam. And when I cut them out, I leave the sides a little longer than I need. I'll cut these down to the line after they're glued onto the wedges. Now, do I want to worry about where this needs to go and make that cut first? If this is where I want it to attach to the stick, and I've got, I guess this is a stick, right? And that seems to be the same diameter. So the width of the foam at this point in the wedge is about the same as the diameter of the wooden dowel. So I'm going to cut it just behind the wooden dowel because I don't need those parts. What I want to do is cut this round out so it glues around the dowel, and then the 6mm can go over it. So that's going to be a fun combination of stuff to put together. I make sure to mark where the cut needs to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go set the table on the bandsaw to an angle and trim this off. Okay. Yeah, that's it could be a little better. I mark where I want the axe handle to fit and carefully cut out that shape on my bandsaw. Now I can glue the HD foam to the core wedge and cut the head to the correct size. Now it's starting to look like those clip-on Lego axes. That's kind of cool. Yeah, that'll be fine. So I'm going to glue that in place. Glue in the handle and add the back piece on as well. A 15mm triangular foam dowel is perfect for the blade edge. I fit the piece longer than the edge so I could trim the corners to a point. There it goes. I marked the handle where the rings will need to go. Just under the head is a ring of 3mm craft foam, and over that will be a piece of 6mm foam. To make the line on this piece, I used a wood burner and a metal ruler. The ring just above the grip has a wave cut along the top. All the raised details were cut from 2mm foam. Another ring of 10mm foam sits just under that with an angle cut onto one side. The ring in between these two has a weave on it. And I've pressed the weave after it's glued down to flatten it. That actually kind of helped it a lot. That's interesting. That made it, ooh, I like the way that looks. And then I glue it in place. Now there's a hammer ball thing on the back of the axe. I have a plan for that. So that glues on there. I may as well go ahead and put all that on now. And then there's a cat toy. My last cat toy. I've got a bunch ordered from AliExpress. They haven't shown up yet, but for right now, this is my last cat toy. Need to put that there. It needs to come up a little bit, and there's a bit of a decoration that goes around it. But what medieval weapon isn't complete without a cat toy? I add an extra layer of 10mm foam to the cat toy, and then I use my Dremel to grind it all smooth. For the raised detail that goes around the toy, I heated a piece of 2mm HD foam and pulled it over the toy until it cooled. Then I could draw the basic shape that I wanted and cut it out. This actually took 2 tries because the second one worked. It needed to be a little bigger. And I've glued it onto the ball over that new 10mm layer, and I can use the wood burner to get the engraving that goes on the side. And then I glue it to the back of the axe head. The sides of the axe head have an intricate knotwork detail with a wolf's head.
Yeah, there we go.
I made a pattern to get the details placed correctly. I could just paint this or draw it on the foam with a hobby knife and then use my heat gun to open those cuts up, but I wanted to cut the pieces from 2mm foam and then glue them down, mostly because I thought it would look better. Possibly because I just seem to want to do things in some really difficult way.
So much little tiny spaghetti cutting. So much little tiny spaghetti cutting.
I cut a new full-size panel pattern and mark on the axe where it needs to go. I need the guide for gluing it down. The edges are overcut so they can be trimmed to an exact fit.
So I definitely have some concern because some of these edges are really close to the edge. And where's my pencil line? There it is. I really kind of want this to work out.
This outline is easy to put on compared to what goes inside of it. I cut out a few key pieces by the wolf head and then use the pattern to pencil in the marks. This gives me the placement for the head. After I cut the foam wolf out, I use the chisel tip on a wood burner to add in the tiny detail that I really can't cut. I have the power set to about 60% on this wood burner. That's a good amount for a speed of working and not just completely melting the foam. The wolf head was a challenge, but the knotwork that goes around it is even more involved. First, I work in sections, penciling in the holes from the pattern and then cutting them out. I felt that penciling and cutting a portion at a time was less likely to tear the pattern. Once I have an outline, I start using the wood burner to suggest how the weave of the pattern tucks under and over itself on the piece. The goal was to get one single piece of foam that I could glue on and not try to weave in a bunch of tiny strands.
All right, now I want to make it fit. It's pretty good to begin with because it was cut from the same drawing. I'll lay it in here. Most of that'll work. So it's a little tight back here and it's a little tight against his nose. This is going to be really fun to glue down.
I use the side of the wood burner to shrink the spots that are a tight fit, and then carefully glue the completed pieces down, gently pulling on the longer pieces to get them to fit around the wolf and not over it.
There's a couple more pieces to this here, and there's a big piece that goes here, but all right, this is working out.
The middle of the axe handle is knotwork as well, but this one I did cut out each piece separately and then glued them down, overlapping each other just like what I could see in the official artwork. This particular piece was a little more easy to do this way. It's geometric, it's less organic than the axe head, and the final piece is on top of all of the others. Scaling the pattern and making the piece fit around the handle was a small challenge, but I was quite happy it worked. A 6mm ring is next, and that's everything on the handle, everything that's above the grip. For the cap that fits over the top of the handle, I cut a 10mm disc and then tapered the sides with my rotary tool. And then two more 2mm discs were cut, each slightly larger than the 10mm disc, and these were glued to the top and the bottom. And that's it for the top cap. When I look at the official artwork, I don't see any other markings on this part, which just leaves one more part to make. The pommel is an arrangement of discs and a cone. So I just need to, it does go this way. Glue things together and then glue this onto the end. All these discs and the cone I spun on my bandsaw with a little disc maker that I've used. So let's glue this stuff together. Stacking the parts was straightforward, and so was cementing it to the bottom. The spike has some simple knot work with a smooth tip, and I'm using a piece from the handle to pattern it again. The tip piece is rolled on, and I'll use the rotary tool to clean up the seam later. Then I glue on 5 arches, and I make the legs overlap one another. I tore the first leg because it was pressed down a little more than it should have been, but I can't really fix that now. I'm not going to start over. So before I can put the leather grip on here, I'm going to need to paint it. So let's paint it. Pretty happy with this so far. Actually really happy with it so far. I wrapped the exposed wood in blue tape and then covered the axe with 2 coats of black Plasti Dip. It's been a while since I used Plasti Dip. I just wanted to give it a shot again. One additional thing I did before I Plasti Dipped, I actually put a coat of contact cement over the cat toy and over some of the cut ends to try and seal the fuzzy bits of the foam. And you could definitely see the difference on the axe edge. This was sealed with contact cement before it was Plasti Dipped. This was not. So just a quick thin layer of contact cement and allow it to dry and then sealing the foam definitely seems to help fill in all the little tiny pinhole seams. I don't know how well you can see that on the camera, but here I can see it really well and I'm pretty happy with how that's working out. I started with the darkest of the PlaidFX silver colors. My plan is just to dry brush the whole axe. And after a couple of coats of the darker silver, I use the lighter color silver that they have. The lighter silver is a little harder to see. So I dry brush with another silver paint. And I'm really trying to be selective here and not just completely covering the axe. And then I add some black shoe polish as a black wash over the more detailed pieces. Pretty much just the knotwork around the head, wiping it down off the high areas. And a little selective rub and buff silver on some key pieces like the axe edge, the wolf, and the pommel spike. Now I can remove the tape. And the exposed wood on the handle is actually grayed out. I'm not really sure why it's weathered this much, but it is in the artwork. This is just some thinned out gray paint. I cut a strip of leather that'll wrap on the grip, and I stained it brown with some of the leather dye that I have left over from my Mjolnir build. Using contact cement as an adhesive, I carefully wrap the handle, and then I add a couple of small tacks at the start and the finish of the leather wrap. Most of the materials I used are available for order and you can have them shipped right to you. I put a list and links in the description. I did not expect all the knotwork to work out as well as it did. I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm calling it the left-hand war axe because if you look in all of the artwork and in the cinematic trailer, which is gorgeous, haven't seen gameplay yet, but I love the look of the cinematic trailer, this particular axe is pretty much in his left hand the whole time. The same hand that's got the hidden blade on the outside that's not hidden. On his right hand, he's got a slightly different axe. It's a traditional looking axe. The head is way more of the profile that I associate with a Viking axe, although this one's still, of course, historically correct as far as I know. But I liked the look of this one. I like the knotwork. I really like the wolf. I like the ball hammer end here. And the knotwork gave me more of a challenge with putting it together. And if you want to take on that same challenge, then all of the pattern pieces that I had made for this, well, I put them in a file and there's a link in the description. You can download those for free if you want. And you can make your own left-handed Ezio Viking war axe. And I made mine out of foam. You could make yours out of whatever you want because there's going to be lots of different ways that you can make a cosplay war axe. But this is how Odin makes. Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to make a thing. You're not mic'd. Hey guys, look, it's Joe! He got off the table. I want to thank Ayla Dervis, Troy Rouse, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.